It's episode 107 of Common Knowledge, the show where I take a look at least 10 common Magic the Gathering cards, and I'll tell you, are they any good in the Pauper format or not? And where they might go if they are good in the Pauper format. Let's start with Iceberg Cancrix. Cancrix? It's like cancer. It's like the crab, cancer, the constellation, right? That's got to be what it is. Anyway, this is a 0/4 snow creature that is a crab. And whenever another snow permanent you control enters, you may have target player mill 2 cards. So we see crabs do this kind of thing. This is cute. As like a Modern Horizons card, you're doing a little snow thing in there. There was a snow sub-theme as part of Modern Horizons, and you get a crab out of the deal that does a cute thing. I don't think you play this in Pauper. There are decks that play snow permanents. There are decks that play mill. I don't think there's decks that do both, really. And I think the problem is there's just not enough support for that at common. Because how many snow permanents do you really have access to? Certainly the land base, whatever lands you play, and you're playing 4 of these things if you are doing this. How many other snow permanents are all that playable in Pauper? Not a ton. Now, you could probably do some kind of mill/control thing. If you go Izzet, you can use Screds and things like that as ways of killing creatures. You could probably put something together. I just don't think it would be very competitive. And if you want to go for a mill plan, there's just easier ways to go for mill plans. So I don't think Cancrix here is all that useful. As far as the score goes, let's give it a... I mean, it is a 0/4 for 2 mana. That's not amazing, but it does block a lot of stuff. And that's not terrible. We'll give it a 2.4, I think. That's probably too high. 2.3. Let's keep going. To Sultai Banner for 3 mana, we get an artifact that taps for black, green, or blue. That's Sultai mana. And you can pay Sultai mana, black, green, and blue, and tap and sacrifice this artifact to draw a card. We have a whole cycle of these for all the cons, guilds, not guilds, wedges, shards, I don't know what they're called. I guess they're wedges, right? Because it's shards for Shards of Alara. These aren't good, right? These aren't good in Commander. They're not really good in Pauper. I would say most mana rocks. There's very few mana rocks I can think of that get played in Pauper at all. And when they do, they're not really played for being a rock. They're played for another purpose, and the rock is a benefit. It's like a little bonus. These aren't incredible. They're nice mana fixing. Like I honestly think maybe we should consider them a little bit more in Commander. 3 mana rocks are really hard to justify in Commander because there's just enough 2 mana rocks and enough 2 mana ramp in Commander that it's, what do you need 3 mana ramp for? But this does fix quite a bit, and later in the game you can sacrifice to draw a card, and those are nice things. But in Pauper, I don't know, you don't really need this. We'll just end up giving all the banners if we ever get another one. Let's give them all 1.9 something, I guess. They're fine. They're just fine, decent mana rocks. Although you can get a lot of 3 mana rocks that just tap for any color. So why would you want to limit yourself to tapping for 3 colors? But most of those don't have a way of drawing a card off of them either. So I don't know. There's some give and take there. I don't think these are particularly great, though. A Luminous Rebuke, 4 and a white for an instant. The spell costs 3 less to cast. If it targets a tapped creature, destroy target creature. We have a bunch of these. We had one in Dustmourn. I think we actually just got one in the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles set. These happen. There's a ton of these in Standard right now. Just all the ones I just mentioned are in Standard. And the problem is none of them are that good because we got the best one in Ether Drift, which is, oh god, do I remember what it's not? It's not Last Resort. No, that's definitely not what it's called. Ride's End. Those are different words. But Ride's End Exiles. And it also targets vehicles and not just creatures. Not that that's a huge deal, but just Ride's End is the best one of these. So you never need to play Luminous Rebuke or I forgot what the Dustborn one's called, but these are fine. These are fine, but there's a clear better one, and you should play that one instead. And there's no reason for you to have 5 copies of this effect in your deck. I don't even really think you need 4. So I mean, on one hand, because this card is just completely outclassed, I kind of just want to give it like a 1, but it's still a fine card. I'll give it a 2.7, but know that that's a 2.7 with a caveat saying never play this card. You just have better options, or at least one better option. Wall of Diffusion is 1 and a red for a 0/5 wall with Defender. That means it can't attack. And this creature can block creatures with Shadow as though it had Shadow. Originally from Tempest, which makes sense. That's where a lot of Shadow was. And has shown up in a couple of online-only sets. It's not very good. there's a little bit of Shadow in Pauper, available at Common, I mean, but not necessarily in the Pauper format. I don't see people using Shadow creatures. That's something that happens a little bit more in Commander, and even in Commander, you're only really seeing a couple of them, and it's less to do with the Shadow and more to do with the other broken stuff those cards can do. Yeah, this isn't very good. Like, maybe it was okay in Tempest when there was a lot of Shadow going around, but we just don't see Shadow. And if you take that part away, it's just a 0/5 wall for 2. That can block a lot of stuff. Like 5 is pretty good, but I think you can get better toughness out of the deal for something like this. I'm gonna give this a 1.2. Pretty bad. Lagak Lizard is 3 and a red for a 3/3 lizard. That's all it is. It's not the best Lagak. The best Lagak is Spitfire Lagak, which is halfway playable in Pauper. I would not completely playable, but halfway playable. Lagak Lizard, though, it's not. Vanilla 3/3 for 4. That's a Hill Giant. With, I guess, is this a more relevant or less relevant creature type than Giant? Would you take Giant or would you take Lizard? I think in today's standard, you would 100% take Lizard. Even with Lorwyn Eclipse and the little bit of Giant stuff they added there, Lizard is 100% the way you'd go. But you wouldn't play this in standard either. So don't worry about it. It's Hill Giants. I would probably give actual factual Hill Giant a 1.3. And I would do that for nostalgia. It gets the 0.1 more for nostalgia. This gets a 1.2. It's awful. Awful. Hill Giants, awful. We'll come back to Field Creeper. God, another vanilla creature. Jesus. I was thinking about, is Giant Octopus? Yeah, also a Hill Giant. Boom. A blue Hill Giant. We have Hill Giants in all the colors. That'd be fun to just find Hill Giants in every single color. All right, let's go back to Field Creeper here, which is 2 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature that is a Scarecrow. Well, it's an artifact, so it's something. I guess that's something. The art's fun. I'm out of good things to say. It's not even a grizzly bear. It's not even as good as a grizzly bear. That's pretty bad. I'm gonna give this a, what did I give the Lagak, a 1.2? I'll give this a 1.1. I really don't like it. No, I'll give it a 1.2. It's a better rate. It's a better rate than the Lagak, and it's an artifact, so it's a little better. It's don't worry about it. 1.1, 1.2, who cares? Hey, here we go. Here's a real card that shows up in both sideboards and main boards of some Pauper decks. It's a Cursed Marauder, 1 and a black for a 2/1 zombie warrior. And when this creature enters, each player sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. So, hey, it's a 2-mana 2/1. Well, this is a 2-mana 2/1, and you said it was bad. Yeah, because this does have relevant creature types, zombie and warrior, mostly zombie. But warrior can sometimes be useful. And then the sacrifice trigger, and also a non-token creature, which is really good to get around some decks that can make tokens, and so you're making them sacrifice a real creature, and that can be really useful. This shows up in some mono black sacrifice decks, because usually what happens is you play this card and you choose to sacrifice this guy. Sometimes you can sacrifice another thing on your board, and maybe that wants to get sacrificed. But usually you play this guy and he sacrifices himself, and then the opponent has to sacrifice something too. So you do get death triggers off that if you're playing something that has some death triggers in there. Like if you've got a Gixian Infiltrator, it will get the +1/+1 counter on it because you sacrifice something. Actually, let me look at Gixian Infiltrator. Isn't it when anybody? Or is it just you? No. No, it is when you sacrifice another permanent, put a +1/+1. There's another card that says when a permanent. Is it the Beetle? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. There are cards that will get better when people sacrifice things. And a Cursed Marauder does that really nicely. And it's pretty easy to bring back in black decks. You know, you can bring it back with Blood Fountains and things like that. And that makes a big difference. You can just keep on playing this. Sometimes people play this in the sideboards as a way of getting rid of, Tolarian Terrors or things like that. But also some people play this in the main deck just as a way of getting death triggers for themselves and also disrupting opponents' plans. It's not bad. It's just a real solid card. We have a lot of these kinds of cards at 3 mana, but Modern Horizons 3 is the first one that put this in at 2 mana. I did not know there was a retro frame version of this. I might need to buy a copy of that. I'm going to write that down. A Cursed Marauder Retro. Interesting. And not terribly expensive. I mean, 85 cents, I don't really want to pay 85 cents for that, but when I can just get it for 32 cents. But, that's a nice looking Magic card right there. What do we give this? It's good. It's good. I'm going to give this a 7.1. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it. That sounds pretty high, honestly, but I think it has enough flexibility in the decks that can play it, and there are decks that really like to play it, and it's a really solid sideboard card for even the decks that aren't main decking it. It's a great option for you. Has a lot of benefits. So 7.1, that's good. That's a good Magic card right there. Next up, will we get another good Magic card? Kinda. I don't know. Didn't Say Please is 1 in double blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Its controller mills 3 cards. So you get a cancel with upside. Just straight up upside from a cancel. Strictly better cancel. Sometimes. I guess in the Pauper format, there's a lot of players, myself included, who have decks that will like having things in the graveyard. And milling cards can sometimes help them put those things in the graveyard. You do this to a Tolarian Terror deck, and now they've potentially got more instants and sorceries in their graveyard. You do this to a Dredge deck or a Spy deck. They're going to like having stuff in their graveyard. So there's reasons why you wouldn't play this and you'd play Cancel instead, but you don't play any of you don't play any of those in Pauper. Don't worry about playing those. You're playing the 1 mana counter spells, you're playing the 2 mana counter spells, and you're just not pretty much ever touching the 3 mana counter spells. The only way you'd go higher is if you're getting something like Metallic Rebuke, which can reduce its costs in other ways. You just never need to play Didn't Say Please, but it's still a cute little card that does some stuff. Let's give it a 2.5, I guess. It does counter a spell. That's pretty good. Guidelight Matrix is 2 mana for an artifact. When this artifact enters, you draw a card. We have a lot of cards that do that already, and that sounds pretty good. What else can this do? For 2 mana, you can tap and target mount you control becomes saddled until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. I don't know how many relevant mounts there are in Pauper. We might check that here in a second. Or you can pay 2 and tap it, and target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So you get to crew a vehicle to its max. That's not bad. There are definitely some vehicles you might be able to do this with and have a pretty good time. Let me take a look. I would be interested to see mounts in Pauper. And yeah, that's good enough. We have 10 mounts. And to be fair, mounts only showed up in Outlaws of Thunder Junction and then into Ether Drift. So it's not like we've had a lot of opportunities for mounts. But there are only 10 common ones. Are there any that are incredible? You know, this gets +2/+2. It costs 5. That's too much. This gets you a creature token, but it costs 4. And, you know, some of these saddles are... You're really looking for big saddle costs, too. Because the idea... Saddle is a little bit like crewing a vehicle in that you tap a creature to saddle it. You only do it on your turn, though, because all of these things have, you know, generally attacks triggers. Yeah. All of these, I think, have attacks triggers. They all do. Yep. So you always want to use them on your turn. In fact, they say you can only saddle as a sorcery because all of them only work on your turn. But it does get you a nice little bonus. But you don't have to do it. It's still a creature, unlike a vehicle that would not be a creature at that point. So you can attack without saddling, but you get the little bonus when you saddle. But you're looking for big saddle costs because you have to, like crewing, you still have to tap down a creature with the power of whatever the saddle cost is. So the Guidelight Matrix that we saw, this thing, you know, if you're paying 2 mana and tapping this thing, you want it to go on a pretty big saddle cost, right? Like, well, let's look at one other card here. Let's look at, oh my God, what's his name? The big mech. The big legendary mech. I guess we can do it this way. I own this card. I have a commander deck of this guy. I just haven't played it in forever. He's white and blue. He's legendary. He's a vehicle. Somebody help me. Why can't I remember his name? Yeah, Shurikai. Of course it's Shurikai. Shurikai's got a crew of 8. So what if you could just pay 2 mana and tap and turn Shurikai into the big 8/8 that he was always meant to be? That's the kind of cost that you're looking to reduce by something like Guidelight Matrix. So are any of these worth it in there? Here's a saddle 3, gets +1/+2 in flying, so you get a 2/3 flying vigilance. Is that worth it to pay 2 mana and tap down an artifact every turn for? I don't think so. This one, the Giant Beaver is actually okay, if I remember right. 4/4 with vigilance, and gets a +1/+ encounter on target creature that saddled it. So you know what? Not good, because you wouldn't saddle it with the Guidelight Matrix, so that doesn't work either. Yeah, I would say none of these are all that good. We're not going to look at vehicles because there's more vehicles. I don't really want to go through all that, but there are some vehicles that you can pair this with and potentially have a pretty good time. I know there's like a 7/7 one from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty at common that is that could be halfway decent, but it costs a fair bit to get that on the table. I think it costs 7. I think this card might eventually be better as they continue to print more mounts or more vehicles. We might get some really good ones at common that make a card like this shine. But for now, it doesn't. Maybe in Commander. Certainly not in Standard. I don't think there's any reason to play this in Standard right now. But maybe in Commander you can have some crazy crew cost that you can bypass by using this instead. But yeah, for Pauper, I think this is pretty easily under a 2. I think we can give it like a 1.7 with room to grow. There's a chance this card might get really good someday, but that day is not today. Paragon of Modernity is 4 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature, Angel Warrior with flying. You can pay 3, and this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If exactly 3 colors of mana were spent to activate this ability, put a +1/+1 counter on it instead. First things first, love the art. Great job, Volkenbaga. He does some incredible work. And this one is right up there. 4 mana for a 2/2 flyer is bad. 7 mana for a 3/3 flyer is also bad. Now, the idea that you could potentially keep putting +1/+1 counters on it because you're using lots of different colors of mana. Streets of New Capenna had a... Were they shards or were they wedges? I don't remember. But they had 3-color factions in Streets of New Capenna. So that makes sense that a card like this is kind of a glue card that you can play in any of those factions, being an artifact with all colors costs. But you get bonuses if you play the full thing of the faction. That's cool for like a limited environment. In Pauper, I don't think you're ever gonna play this. It's not a particularly good creature. There are better ways to get +1/+1 counters on creatures, or just to buff your creatures generally. This is overcosted in basically every sense of the word, but it's got great art. We'll give it a 1.5. It's pretty bad. And I think that's it. So we'll do a bonus card and call it a day. Virulent Wound is a single black mana for an instant. Put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. When that creature dies this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. I'm actually on a Discord right now where somebody brought this card up and was talking about it as an option in, is this like maybe a Poison Storm card? And some people were discussing it. I didn't weigh into the conversation, but I guess I am forced to now through this. I don't think this is a Poison Storm card. I don't think you want to use this in Poison Storm. I think you have better control options in Poison Storm. You have a Vraska's Fall, which just makes them sacrifice a creature. Sure, I guess this works halfway decently well against something like fairies when you have a lot of small creatures that you can potentially deal with. But generally in Poison Storm, you're just trying to get the poison counter. You just need to get 1 poison counter on them, and then you use all the proliferate tricks. And I think we just have better poison counter cards. You've got Vraska's Fall, which guarantees a poison counter, or you have the something to Phyresis, right? Phyresis. Prologue to Phyresis, which draws you a card, and each opponent gets a poison counter. So there are just ways of getting poison counters onto the opponent that are better than this. This is a conditional way of getting a poison counter on it, and I don't like that because if you don't kill the creature, if all they have out are 3/3s and you put a -1/-1 counter on a guy, well, okay, now he's a 2/2, but you didn't get the poison counter unless now you have to spend another card or another resource to then kill that creature, or attack or block something that makes it work. But I don't like it. I don't like it. I think the Poison Storm deck doesn't need it. They have the tools that makes this plan work without this card, and I think they're fine without it. Maybe you could justify it as a sideboard card. Maybe if you're going up specifically against fairies or White Weenie or mono red. Maybe depends on what they're playing in mono red. But I'm not a fan. I don't particularly like it. It's okay. It's potentially a 1 mana kill spell, which is cool at instant speed. That's not nothing, but it's not a whole lot of something either. I will give it a 2.6, I think. Yeah. Let's do another bonus card. I want to do another one. Sultai Skullkeeper is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Snake Shaman. When this creature enters, you mill 2 cards. Okay. We have a lot of other cards that do basically this. Maybe not in blue. Well, yeah, even in blue. In blue, you got the Philology Archaeologist that enters and you mill 3 cards. Now it's a 0/3, not a 2/1, but sometimes you'll want the 0/3. Also, it puts a card back in your hand, so it's kind of like this draws a card for you. And even if you don't get a card with it, it puts a +1/+1 counter on itself, so you get a 1/4 then. And I think I would take a 1/4 over a 2/1 most days. In black, you also have Mire Triton, which I have in a deck right now that I like quite a bit. Same thing. It's basically the same thing, just in black. It's a 2/1 that costs 2, and when it enters, you mill 2 cards. But you also gain 2 life, and it's also got Death Touch, and those are nice things too. You know, we have better cards than the Sultai Skullkeeper, and you just don't ever really need this card, no matter what color you're playing. We'll give this a 1.7. Sure, 1.7 works. Anyway, thanks for joining me. See you next time.